This podcast is sponsored by ScienceBasedLearning.com. Discover your passion for languages with our innovative ebook, audiobook, and video system. Maximize retention using spaced repetition. Start your journey today.
Psycholinguistics and adult language learning: how science improves your language acquisition. Discover how psycholinguistics can enhance adult language learning with science-based methods for better retention and more effective language acquisition. Understanding psycholinguistics and its impact on second language learning. When we embark on the journey to learn a new language, we often focus on memorizing vocabulary, practicing grammar, or immersing ourselves in conversation. But beneath all these activities lies a fascinating and complex process studied by psycholinguistics: the science that explores how our brain processes language. For adult language learners, understanding the basics of psycholinguistics can shed light on how to improve language acquisition strategies, boosting both speed and retention. This post will explore what psycholinguistics is, why it matters in second language learning, and how applying its insights can make your language journey more effective. What is psycholinguistics? Psycholinguistics is the study of the mental processes that enable us to acquire, understand, produce, and use language. It digs into how the brain recognizes sounds, forms words, constructs sentences, and interprets meaning. In the context of second language learning, psycholinguistics examines how our minds handle learning and using a new language differently from our native tongue. It also gives clues about why some adults might struggle with language acquisition compared to children, and how certain methods can optimize adult language learning. The science behind language learning. Language learning is ultimately about creating new neural pathways in the brain. When we first encounter a language, the brain works hard to decode unfamiliar sounds and associate meaning. Over time, with repeated exposure and practice, these pathways strengthen, making language processing smoother and more automatic. One key insight from psycholinguistics is the importance of input, the exposure to meaningful language through reading, listening, or conversation. However, it's not just any input that matters. Quality and frequency are crucial for building strong connections. Comprehensible input. Language that is slightly above your current ability helps push your skills forward without causing frustration. Repetition and spaced practice. Reinforcing language material over time supports retention and helps transfer knowledge from short-term to long-term memory. Active engagement. Producing language, speaking or writing, activates those neural pathways differently than passive recognition, listening or reading. How psycholinguistics shapes adult language learning. Psycholinguistics reveals why adult language learners often face unique challenges compared to children. While children learn a language effortlessly, adults typically rely more on explicit learning and cognitive strategies. Critical period hypothesis. The brain is more plastic for language learning during childhood, so adults might find pronunciation and fluency harder to perfect. Interference from native language. Adults have entrenched grammatical structures and vocabulary from their first language, sometimes causing errors or slower processing of the new language. Higher metalinguistic awareness. Adults can take advantage of explicit grammar instruction and conscious strategies, which children often acquire implicitly. Understanding these factors encourages adult learners to adopt approaches tailored for how their brains learn best. For example, balancing immersive input with explicit study and regularly practicing through speaking and writing. Practical tips based on psycholinguistics. Here are some science-based tips to help you learn a second language more effectively. Inventory health check: why it's a game changer for your business. Engage in active usage. Try writing journals, speaking with native speakers, or even thinking in the new language to deepen neural connections. Focus on meaningful input. Read or listen to material that interests you and is just challenging enough to understand with some effort. Allow yourself to make mistakes. Error correction is part of the learning process and helps the brain adjust and refine language rules. Mix explicit study with immersion. Combine grammar drills with real-world language exposure to balance cognitive awareness and intuitive use. How to learn a language efficiently using psycholinguistics. Thanks to advances in research, language learning tools today can harness psycholinguistic principles for better outcomes. One example is automated spaced repetition platforms combined with multimedia methods to cater to various learning styles and maximize retention. If you want to tap into these methods, check out sciencebasedlearning.com. They offer a simple ebook, audiobook, and video language learning system combined with an online practice app that uses the science behind spaced repetition to help adult learners retain and apply new language skills more efficiently. By incorporating scientifically backed techniques, such platforms help learners navigate the complex processes of language acquisition with less frustration and more consistency. Final thoughts. And here's a little secret. Many businesses don't do this regularly, which can hurt their bottom line more than they realize. Whether you run a small shop or a larger operation, an inventory health check keeps everything in balance and nimble. Whether you are just starting or continuing your language learning journey, understanding psycholinguistics can help you develop smarter study habits that align with how your brain works. With the right strategies, patience, and tools like sciencebasedlearning.com, mastering a new language becomes a more achievable and enjoyable experience. Remember, learning a language is not just about acquiring words and grammar, it's about rewiring your brain to think, understand, and express yourself in a whole new way. Use the power of psycholinguistics to guide your way.